Hello, my name is Carl Johnson. I'm a certified financial planner with Arrow Advisors right here in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm recording a series of presentations going over some common things that I get questions about when I work with clients that are residents or fellows or early practicing physicians. Today's topic that we're going to talk about is starting to save. We're just going to go through some basic components of starting to save money, invest money, setting aside money for the future. Here's my disclosure. Now let's get started. Starting to save. What we're going to talk about today is when to start saving, how much to save, where to save. And by saving, the definition of that is setting aside money for the future. So that would be investing for retirement, college, all those things that you need money for. When to start saving. So there's a financial hierarchy of decisions that you should make. Saving for the future or investing for the future should come after you've done a couple other things first. The first thing that you need to do in your financial hierarchy is to have your insurances in order. I recorded a different presentation that talks about the different insurances you should consider. So you should, before you set money aside for your future, you should make sure that you take care of your todays. So you should have car insurance, homeowners insurance, disability insurance, umbrella policies, etc. before you start setting aside money for retirement. And then after you have your insurances in order, you should have a certain amount of liquidity built up on your balance sheet before you start setting money aside for long-term savings. Once those things are done, the younger you start to save and the more that you save, the better you will be. Saving is definitely a habit. I always feel there's two kinds of people, and I can tell pretty quickly when I meet with them. Savers like to save money and spenders like to spend money. And no matter what the income level is, it can be very difficult to get a spender to become a saver or to get a saver to become a spender. Saving early versus waiting to save. I have an example here. If an individual at age 25 starts saving $5,000 per year, at age 65 or 40 years later, if the account earned an 8% linear rate of return, that $5,000 per year would grow to be almost $1.4 million. If somebody waited to start saving until they were more established and started putting the same $5,000 at age 85, the account would not have $1.4 million in it. It would have much less. I'm going to pause here for a little bit, and I want you to guess how much less would waiting 20 years result in that $1.4 million being. Now that you have your guess, hopefully, 272,000. So if somebody had 20 years to save versus 40 years to save the same amount of money, it's not half the income or half the account balance, it's significantly less. Another way to phrase this question is, how much would a 45-year-old have to set aside to get the same $1.4 million earning 8% if they started at 45 instead of at 25? Again, I'd like you to think about this and guess, how much do you think somebody would have to set aside? Okay, hopefully you have your guess now. The answer is 28 grand. Nothing illustrates more importantly the effect of saving early versus waiting to save. Start saving now. Don't let excuses prevent you from setting aside money for your future. A lot of times when I work with people, they'll have excuses such as they want to pay off some debt, they want to buy a house, they need a new car, they need new landscaping. They have money for all of these events, but they don't have money to set aside money for their future. I would strongly encourage you to set up a plan where you save money first. Now the question is, if you want to be a good saver, how much should you save to qualify as a good saver? So it depends upon when you're going to retire, how you want your lifestyle to be when you retire, and how many unknown life events you may have. The next few slides after this are going to go through some different scenarios on different savings rates and what that'll do to somebody's retirement projections. A lot of these questions on this slide, when you're going to retire, how you want to retire, are questions that when you're in your 20s and 30s, you simply do not know the answer to that. So saving a good amount of money is the only way to make sure when these questions become known, usually when you're in your late 50s, early 60s, that you'll have enough money that you'll have the option to retire when you want to. Here's the first example, and this is a first slide. It's not a real example. So this is somebody making $200,000 a year with 3% pay increases for 40 years. And then we're going to do different savings rates for 20 years of retirement. This first slide just shows the person's able to save 100% of their income. So there's no lifestyle expenditures, there's no taxes, there's no insurance cost. Obviously, this isn't a real world scenario. Here is the save 5% slide. Obviously, if you see red, that is not a good scenario. So somebody that makes $200,000 a year, growing by 3% per year, cost of living raises, that sets aside 5% of their income and earns 8% on it after tax rate of return, they will run out of money before they are 85 years of age. So one answer is saving 5% will not work. The next slide will be saving 10%. Much better. So here is somebody making $200,000 a year, setting aside 10% of their income, and that earns 8%. Now you can see when they get out to age 85, their account balance is getting pretty small. And this also assumes an 8% after-tax rate of return every year for 60 years. Some people might believe that's a realistic return. Some people might not believe that's a realistic return. But 8% after tax every year for 60 years, saving 10% with no unknown life events, work out. The next scenario will be saving 20%. Much better. So here you can see somebody setting aside 20% of their income, earning 8%, and retiring will have plenty of money. Now, one of the things that I didn't take into account on here is that I've mentioned is these unexpected life events. So the next slide, I'm going to add in paying for college and paying for children's weddings. And I just used hypothetical numbers so that it just kind of illustrates what impact withdrawing money out of this account can have to the actual account. Here you can see me pulling out money to pay for the cost of college and children's wedding. So on the bottom there you can see $200,000 came out in year 20 to cover college cost. Now obviously that would be a 1-year withdrawal, and maybe it takes 4 or 5 years to spend the $200,000 on college. In a children's wedding, I'm not sure what a wedding will cost in 25 years, but maybe that's 2 kids or 3 kids. But I just wanted to show an example of some money coming out of that account. And this is earning a good rate of return, and it still works out pretty close with somebody saving 20%. You can also see up there, I changed the rate of return from 8% to 6%. So 6% after-tax rate of return for somebody that makes $200,000 a year is probably an 8 to 9% pre-tax rate of return. So somebody saving 20%, paying for some unexpected life events, earning less than 8%, still has a pretty good chance of retiring okay on that money. Here is showing somebody saving 30%. I have very few, if any, clients that actually set aside 30% of their money. So this isn't necessarily my recommendation. It's just showing that if you start early and save a lot, pretty much anything that life can throw at you in terms of rate of returns, unexpected life events, fluctuations in employment, whatever it is, the account is going to grow, and retirement's going to definitely be, I don't want to say easy, but it's going to be easier than if you save less. Now, this is just kind of general theory of setting aside 20, 25, 30, 15% of your income. The next question is, okay, once I decide I want to save money, where can I save it and how should I save it? Where to save? Pre-tax accounts. So these are accounts that you put money into before you pay tax on the deposits. These are accounts such as 401ks, SEPs, deductible IRAs, 403bs, profit sharing plans, defined benefit pension plans, etc. They're almost always work-sponsored plans. So you sign up through them for work, money goes in the account before you see. So if you put $5,000 into one of these accounts, it's $5,000 that you don't pay income tax on because you're deferring the tax on it. The next thing is just a post-tax account. So this is you receive the pay, it goes into your checking account, and then you go and you invest it in something else. So this can be mutual funds, stocks, bonds, CDs, exchange traded funds, Roth IRAs, cash value life insurance policy, real estate, different businesses. There's a bunch of different things you can invest money into after you pay tax on it. One of the things I want to talk about is there's no one best place to save. So on the previous slide, the pre-tax accounts and post-tax accounts both have their pros and cons. The good thing about pre-tax accounts is you don't have to pay tax on the money now. The bad thing, or possibly bad thing, is we have no idea what tax rates are going to be in the future. So you could be deferring income in today's tax brackets and in the future taking it out at an unknown future tax bracket. And we don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing until we arrive in the future. The post-tax accounts tend to be a little bit more liquid. If you needed money for college or an unknown expense, it tends to be a little bit easier to get to that money than it does money inside of a pre-tax account. And you have basically unlimited options on where to put it. And there can be different tax advantages in these accounts where you can be exposed to capital gains taxes versus all ordinary income taxes. And then there's some tax disadvantages too on where the account's going to be taxable along the way versus deferring it. The point I'm trying to get across here is you have to save early, save often. I would strongly encourage you to save at least 15% of your income. 20% is a much better number. And where you save that money or how you save it is a lot less important than the fact that you actually are setting aside 15% of your income. If you have any questions about this or would like to talk to me about anything further, my information was on the first slide, and there's going to be a scheduled question and answer session I'm going to come to that you can come in and ask me any questions about saving money, where to save it, how much to save. The one main thing I wanted to make on this is saving 5 or 10% of your income or waiting 15 years or 10 years to start saving is not going to be a good financial strategy to implement.